Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And with the CDL Camos getting leaked, lots of reaction to this from pros around the world. Envoy not happy at all with what they look like for the Los Angeles Thieves and the Atlanta FaZe perspective. But also Crimsix calling out many of the pros of today, saying that it's pretty pathetic they try and stab you in the back rather than working through problems. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to dive into today. Firstly, just to say this, because Mack is having a child relatively soon and it may coincide with Major 1, so Maven may be there, but he may not be casting with Mack. I think we saw that story, but I thought this was kind of funny, just worthy of note. This also from Temp here, so tonight he says, which may be today or may have been yesterday, I think he's dropping an album, baby. I mean, look at this. This is a rare being. I think maybe David Picasso made these graphics. It kind of looks like his style, but I mean, these are really cool, let's be honest here. So yeah, Don's dropping a track. It kind of makes me wish that Boz did some more tracks, because you know, One Night, Rich Boy, these tracks pretty good. If Boz did a whole album, like I'd for sure be listening to that. But yeah, this is seemingly, I mean, look at this, parental advisory, explicit content, just absolutely superb seeds. So you know, honestly, fair play to Temp, right? Keeping the off season spicy, doing some stuff in the off season, releasing an album, one album per season from now on would be pretty cool. But yeah, I think it's probably available on Spotify or at least coming soon. So I guess stay tuned for that one. Let's talk about these camos then. I was going to bring these up the other day, but then people were like, they were getting copyrighted, but now it seems to be okay. People have them in videos. Let's just dive into it. So these are the 12 CDL camos that we believe are in Modern Warfare 2. And yeah, as I said the other day, these are kind of cheeks, let's be honest. You can argue whether these are better or worse than previous years, but the fact of the matter is it's basically the same thing, copy and pasted, right? They've got the standard template, which is basically a 10 headshot camo, and then they just change the colors based on the team itself. And they don't even do a good job of changing the colors based on the team. So the one thing I will say is this is coming out at launch, we think, right? The camo should be there right at the start of the game, which is better than previously. Like, if you have to wait 6 months and then they still add these camos, it's like, come on. But, you know, at least if they're there at launch, there is maybe a possibility down the line if someone actually decent at making camos can make some proper CDL camos and get them added into the game. But still, the team's got to be so annoyed at stuff like this, especially FaZe. And well, you guys can already probably tell exactly why. But, yeah, so here we go. I mean, I'll just scroll through them. This, okay, I'll come back to the red camos. This is LAG, top right, because they've added this yellow into their kind of color palette now, which I think is kind of nice. Boston is weird because Boston is just mostly blue, despite the fact that really they should be more green. I guess they didn't want to compete with the OpTic one, which is down here, so I don't know what you guys think about that. Florida always looks kind of nice, their color palette, I think. And then they've got Seattle, which is just ugly. I mean, like, what is this? I don't know, maybe you guys like it, but there's nothing really going on here. It's just dark and a bit of green. Like, that's just straight up boring. Toronto's is here, New York, London Royal Ravens, Minnesota Rokkr, Vegas Legion, OpTic, kind of, you know, it's literally the same. There's not even any logos on them. I mean, come on, guys. We've got to do better at this point. The thing that really makes me laugh, and even Envoy pointed this out, now they got to be trolling FaZe or us with that third one. So, look at these. This is Vegas, right? Bottom right. So, like, Vegas is out of there. So, between these two, one of these is LA Thieves, and one of these is Atlanta FaZe. And I think clearly the top one's got to be Thieves, right? With the colors and the black, and, like, that's what I think is the case. So, this one is FaZe's camo. The 2021 World Champions, one of the biggest organizations in the world of esports, and FaZe get this as their camo, which doesn't even look like their color scheme, to be honest. Like, what are these colors? Is this, like, I don't know. I just don't understand. It doesn't even look like FaZe colors to me. The colors just look wrong. I guess they don't want to clash it with Thieves' one, but who's going to buy this? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't really understand it personally. That is what the camos look like, apparently, for the new game. They've successfully managed to do it again and, you know, just frustrate everyone once again. And even as Crone points out right here, I believe these camos on the left, the top two, I think, are Lion Man camos. I think Dabs may have made this one, not exactly sure. But, I mean, yeah, so look at these. This Florida Mutineers one is exactly the way it should be done. You've got the logo on the gun, you've got the name of the kind of team on the gun. Like, how hard can it be to do stuff like this? People have made these for years in Call of Duty, and yet still we are stuck with what they create, which looks like this. I mean, this was, I mean, look at these. They're absolutely terrible. Even Vanguard's one, like, had a little bit more going on. At least it covers the whole gun, and kind of the same thing this time around as well. But, yeah, it's just still not anywhere near as good as we think it should be. And people would actually want to buy these if they're any good. I just don't understand how year after year, and I know that Hex has been always frustrated about this and talking about it. And I think Hex has said before, you know what, I've just given up trying because they never listen. Like, and also it would take effort off their plate. Like, if the developers said, you know what, we're not going to do it, we're just going to outsource it to the teams and their graphic designers, then sure, they could do exactly that, surely. I mean, we've seen this in the past with even, I think it was Rainbow Six, Lineman designed a camo for maybe it was Chiefs or something. Chiefs Esports Club, he designed a camo for them. It's now in Rainbow Six, like his design. So why isn't this possible? It frustrates me year after year, but at least this year, maybe like the camos are coming out so much earlier that we might in due course have something better. But you know, I'm not holding out too much hope. There is of course 2 years to this game, so they've got time to fix it. But will they? That's another question. LAG, of course, they've got some content on the horizon here. This is what they're up to. Drafting a COD Pro fantasy team, thought that was pretty cool. But let's talk about this Crim podcast then. Does a great episode with Aches, of course, Burned Bridges, episode 1 or episode 2 or whatever exactly is going on. There's many more episodes of this, I'm sure, to come in due course. One of the interesting topics, though, they were discussing was the complexity team back in the day and why Crim feels like that was the best team environment he'd ever been on with TP and Aches. And of course, it was Clayster for a time, then it was Karma for another time. And they talked about why Clay got dropped. I think like Clay was using some sort of EOTech site in a public match, and they thought, you know what, is this Clay guy fully committed? They probably could have solved the issue, but they thought, you know what, if we get Karma, makes the team that he's on worse and makes us better, so why not just go for it? He reckons they'd have still won champs even with Clayster in 2014 regardless. That would have meant Clay was been a 4-time world champion if that timeline would have been in effect. But he talks a lot about the way they had to kind of fight for each other's respect, right? And even Crim in the early days, like TP, his teammates, wouldn't pick him in like 8 matches, and like he had to earn that respect. And like nowadays, Crim reckons that players would get really annoyed about that, are really frustrated, and try and stab other guys in the back as a result, and kind of pathetic attitude he reckons nowadays of trying to be entitled to that respect from your teammates. And back in the day, that wasn't guaranteed. You had to earn it. You had to continually, once you were in the team, that was your starting point to really grind and go harder. And he reckons nowadays, if anyone feels disrespected or something by their teammates, then they're more likely just going to try and stab them in the back and screw them over in some way or another in the future, rather than taking it as kind of a learning lesson.
Well,
we also didn't take it personal.
You two were like that, right? You and T were already like that.
Oh yeah, we were together for like 3 years before.
Did you even know that I was like that before you picked me up?
No.
Shot in the dark?
No, I just knew like you were a grinder and you were good.
Dude, like, can you imagine nowadays if these Zoomers went on a team, right? And their own teammate didn't pick them.
Yeah, that would be a team.
They would like...
Somebody could be getting dropped.
Dude.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there like, that didn't bother me at all.
They would take it super personal.
You know? I would just spectate. I'd be like, all right, like, I got to prove them wrong. You know, I got to earn my spot on this team. But nowadays, people bitch and cry and try to snake you.
Different times.
Stab you in the back. It's honestly pathetic.
I think too, something that doesn't happen nowadays is like we kind of played for each other's respect.
Yeah.
Right? Like, regardless if we got in an argument and bitched each other all day about something in game, we didn't take that personal. We got on the next day and still wanted to show each other like we were the best at what our job. That's period.
Yeah, and that's what it's like.
Like there was no doubt back then.
It's almost like we were, you know, like a pro NFL team or, you know, professional sports team or, you know, SEAL Team 6 where it's like let's cut that one out. No, seriously. It's
SEAL Team 6.
No, bro, it's the fact that if you're on this team, right, you have to earn it, like you have to earn your spot.
Yeah.
You're not just here now. Like it's not over. Like now is when you go harder.
Yeah.
And it was like we had that without even saying it, which is that right there is no team I've been on has had that.
So Crim has implied this many times, and it's interesting really those early days where Crimsix came into COD and obviously meshed so well his attitude and his personality with Aches and TP, and yes, there would be some internal conflict within that team, but it never affected their performances because they knew what it was about, and like they were always there to try and one-up each other and maximize the respect that each other had for them. And he reckons nowadays that same thing doesn't really exist to the same degree. Even Mack says, another OG from the European scene, that the Epsilon team that was around in the European side was the same thing that was going on in terms of the respect stories and the way that their teammates treated each other, and also the success that came naturally as a result, you could argue. And what exactly has changed? Because if Crim is saying that team, that complexity team back in 2013 was pretty much, 2014 was the same deal as the Epsilon team at a similar time, and nowadays no teams are like that, and Crim having taken his mentality and that complexity mindset through to other teams, it's worked out on many occasions. He's won many championships on many different different teams, but it does cause more conflict, it seems, nowadays than maybe it did back in the day. Even the OpTic dynasty, the Scump, the formal thing, like they obviously had their frictions over the years they were teaming, and then even in more recent times, we see the last couple of years, the Dallas Empire team, the Huke situation, the Neptune situation. Really, in the recent couple of years, Crimsix's mentality, like you could argue it's outdated for what the modern pros want to be dealing with in terms of a leader and a teammate. But is this kind of mentality holding teams back from their fullest potential? I think that's probably what Crimsix believes, right? Because he's looking at that cold team back in the day. He's looking at what these guys do nowadays and looking at, Neptune and Huke and these players that didn't necessarily get on too well with him. And therefore he thinks that, maybe Neptune's an example of what he thinks about the whole stabbing in the back type stuff, because obviously they didn't get on so well. Crimsix said, Neptune, you're the worst SMG in the league, like to try to inspire him to get better. Neptune didn't take that well, right? He reckons a teammate back in the day for Crim in 2014 would have taken that on board. You know what, fair enough, I've got to earn Crim's respect. Whereas, maybe nowadays pros are more inclined to think, you know what, screw you, right? Like, and then of course Neptune gets dropped, but then he was talking about, Crim's IGLing, his leadership doesn't really work, like it's not really well aligned with, I understood the game better than Crim does, stuff like this that he was saying at the time. And you could argue on both sides of the equation, and at the end of the day, Neptune is still in the league for the upcoming season and Crim is not. And you could argue that Crim feels like he's been stabbed in the back to some degree by some of the players that he's had conflicts with, because they've said XYZ to their teammates and friends, and therefore Crim, when it comes to getting on a new team for the new season, no one wants to team with him because everyone's told their friends, this Crim guy really said this to me, it's not worth teaming with him, even if Crim could have given them a better opportunity, some of these CDL teams, to actually win. So that's just my perspective on it, to be honest. Tweet your thoughts in the comment section below. But again, I reckon some of these new gen players are pretty pathetic in terms of the way that they treat their teammates. And back in the day, the players were far less soft, I guess, is what he's kind of getting at here. And even this from Huke I thought was interesting. So they had their dramas during of course, the Black Ops Cold War season. And Brian Stats points out his kind of career performances. 41 events he's gone to, 5-time event champion, 1-time world champion, 12 finals appearances, rookie of the year in Advanced Warfare, most improved player 2019, an average placing of about 6th. So yeah, Huke's such an interesting player to me because for a long time he was considered by the pros to be the absolute second coming of Christ. And even when he returned when he was 18 in World War II, the community was all calling him overrated, and it really took until Modern Warfare when he won champs for him to finally get the respect. But even since then, he hasn't really been that good, let's be honest, the last couple of seasons here, despite having so much name value, I still think. So I think this season's a big one for him, and that SMG line is a big question to me over at LAG with Huke and Neptune, two guys with whom Crim has had his fair share of dramas over the last couple of years. We'll see if Arcitys can deal with that as their IGL now. And just to mention before we close out the video here, the top 11 or top 12, top 11 players from last season, Scump gets top 12. Some were saying this was arguably, is this too high? Is this too low? I think this is maybe about right. It's kind of tough to say. I think that there's maybe a couple of other players that I could have put above Scump, but it's always kind of difficult to say because at the start of the season, Scump was very good indeed. And when you're kind of doing a ranking over the entire year, it's pretty difficult to really figure out how you rank that, right? Because Scump was great at the start and then at the end didn't have his greatest performances. But on the other side of things, it was Octane who got number 11, and he was awful at the start. But as of course the time progressed, he became very good at the end of the season, right? His first couple of events were tragic, apart from the kickoff. But then after that, he really turned up big time. Had 49 sniper rifle kills and a 1.24 in the World Championship just in hardpoint. So yeah, I think this is probably about right. Of course, a lot of the Thieves guys are going to be there. You guys can probably guess the top 10 in terms of players, but I don't think you'll get the order right. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.